With the help of the Almighty, my name is Rabbi Yisroel Dovid Weiss of Neturei, Karta International, Jews United Against Zionism. Yes, so first, with the help of the Almighty, I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may be worthy of conveying His message and so sanctify His name and bring peace to the world. Amen. Assalamu alaikum. And shukran. Thank you so much for having us, and I thank the King of Morocco. God should give him long and healthy years. For first of all, for continuing this gracious embracing, welcoming, and having Jewish people living here. God will certainly repay this kindness. And as I say, the whole family should have long and healthy years with the prosperity and tranquility with all the people of Morocco. Yes, it's very clear the distinct difference between Judaism and Zionism. Judaism is a religion of 3,000 years to be subservient to God, and Judaism required Jews to, when God took us out of Egypt, that we should go into the Holy Land, and we were led in by Yehoshua the prophet, a student of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. But we were put under stipulation by God that we have to be on a high level of spirituality to exist in the Holy Land. God is all over, but the Holy Land has a special significance. It's very spiritual, and if we're not up to par, then, as we were told in the Hebrew books, we will be, it says, in the Torah, it says God will, the land will reject you if you will defile the land. And eventually, as the books of the prophets, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, they all warned the Jews they will be sent into exile, and that culminated with 2,000 years ago with the destruction of the temple. King Solomon built the temple. It was destroyed. The second was destroyed, and we were sent into exile. And now every Jewish person who says prayers says, "Mipnei chataenu galinu me'artzeinu." Because of our sins, we are in exile. In other words, not because we are lacking physical prowess, strength, guns, or anything. The reason why we have been sent into exile by God is because we were not on that high level of spirituality. We weren't such terrible people. We were not on that level that was required to be there as a nation. As individuals, we are permitted, God permitted us to be there under the rule of whoever, whether it was the Greeks, the Romans, or the Ottoman Empire, but we have to be good citizens, as we are required throughout the world. The Jew is required to be a loyal citizen in any country they reside. That's the decree of exile. So for 2,000 years now, since the destruction of exile, we are in exile, and we are expressly forbidden to re-establish any Jewish sovereignty. King Solomon wrote in the highest book of prophecy is from King Solomon. It's called Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. It's written in metaphor, the whole book. And there it says that God put the daughters of Jerusalem, meaning the Jewish people, under oath, under 3 oaths, that we should not return en masse in large numbers. We should not rebel against any nations, and we should not make any attempt to end exile in any shape or form. Zionism is a movement that's relatively new, 140, 150 years a movement that wants to transform this Judaism, which is to uphold the Torah that we took on Mount Sinai, the covenant of 3,000 years, that's the religion, to be subservient to God and keep the Torah. They want to transform this into an erzatz Judaism, a nationalism, a base material concept of having a piece of land. They ignore totally that the whole concept that was subservient to God, and we have to be holy, and that God sent us into exile because we weren't on that level of holiness, and that we have to repent and God will eventually end exile, where all humanity will serve God and not become Jewish, but everybody together will serve God in peace, and God will at that time rebuild the temple, and we will go up as a nation. But till that day comes, we're expressly forbidden to establish any Jewish sovereignty, even if the land would have been uninhabited, but certainly not by killing or stealing. And on top of that, Jews are required to show thankfulness, gratitude, but to people who were kind to us. That's a requirement of Judaism. And through hundreds of years, we went through the Inquisition and Crusades and so much suffering. And it was the Muslim and Arab lands that embraced Jews, took us in, as Morocco, of course. So we and the Ottoman Empire. So many, they took us in, and we were able to coexist in peace and harmony. So we have to show gratitude, and I always love to show. I love to show pictures of how Jews always live together in peace and harmony. Which really in Morocco is superfluous to speak about this because everybody knows this history. It's unfortunately it's in the Western world that the Zionists.
In this picture, Mr.
Yes.
A Palestinian.
Yes, a Palestinian and a Jew, and that's how we're distinctly different. We believe in one God. Oh, I don't know. It's way back. It's before the state of Israel. Yeah. So we live together. The point is that we have a different religion, distinctly, but that's not an impediment to coexistence. We believe in one God, and we never. The difference of religion is not a cause of conflict or a rift. And as Jews, as I say, we're not allowed to create a Jewish sovereignty. We're not allowed to, certainly not by driving the people from the land or taking over the land, and certainly not to a people who were so kind to us and throughout the history took us in and gave us a home, and we flourished. And as we did in Morocco, we put out our greatest the Rif. It's the Rabbi Yisroel Dovid. It's going to be his anniversary this week, and so many great rabbis and around was in so many. I mean, every place. There's all full of Jewish history here. And so it is in Palestine and so forth. So this concept of creating a narrative that there's a hate from Muslims to Jews, and therefore they're protecting themselves, the Zionists, against the hate of the Muslim people, that's vile, that's repugnant. And we cannot be silent, and we're not allowed to be silent when it's being done in our name. A rebellion. 100%. And that's why the rabbis
How do you explain that?
Well, because they came a group of people who actually were clearly not religious. Again, I always like to show pictures. You see in this picture where David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister, and you have a picture of Theodore Herzl there. And they're making, this is the historical moment of the Declaration of Independence of Israel, 1948, and independence all in Israel. And you can see they're making supposedly a Jewish state. They have Stars of David. They're creating this so-called Jewish state that should be with the Jewish religion. Yet, they don't see them religious. No, a Jew is required to cover his head to show that he fears God. A Jew, they would have, where's a rabbi? If it would be a Muslim state, you would have imams, you would have sheikhs, you would have ayatollahs. And if it would be a Christian state, you would have priests. And here, they're making a Jewish state, the historical moment, and they're just plain opposers of their anti-religious, non-religious. Right, nothing. They didn't even put God's name in the declaration. They created Ivrit, that's the Hebrew, it's modern Hebrew, because they don't like the language that the Torah is written in. And therefore, all the rabbis, I mean, this is basics of anybody who knows the Jewish inner lives of Judaism, and if they would know the history, they would know that all the Jewish leaders, universally, the rabbis speak out, the leaders of every Jewish, from all the countries, they all stood in opposition. Yeah, it's called The Rabbis Speak Out. It's 130 years, this was written already almost 20 years ago, of religious opposition to Zionism, where it shows not only all the tens of thousands of rabbis, but the leaders of the Jewish communities from all the countries. They all said, I'm sorry, Zionism, you're making a movement that's contradictory to our religion. We're not allowed to occupy, we're not allowed to have a Jewish state. And I quote some of them. I'll quote one from Morocco. I'll quote right, yes, a very famous Rabbi Abu Chatzira. Everybody knows him in the Jewish world.
So famous.
And yes, and he was up. He went to Jerusalem, and then he came back because they were putting pressure on him from the Zionists. And he passed away in 1984. Lumisparam. He was from 1890. So, and he said, with the help of God, this was in 1965. He put out a statement. He said, "I hereby join the great rabbis of the Sephardic Eida Charei," this means the God-fearing community, in the holy city of Jerusalem, in support of the Torah ruling that it is forbidden to participate in governmental elections because it is against our holy Torah. May our religious brethren who continue to walk in the path of our holy forebears be blessed. In other words, it had nothing to do with them. And this is the view of Judaism, as the great the Chafetz Chaim, one of the leaders that a codifier of Jewish law from Lithuania, that everybody follows his teachings. He said, the Zionists are dead limbs of our people, which causes the entire body to rot. Basically, they're all across the board, from Yemen, from Tunisia, from Morocco, all the Hungary, all, and the Ivy League in Jewish teaching, Brisk, it's called. They all said, "I'm sorry, this is not acceptable." The chief rabbi of Palestine in 1947. Right before they created they ratified in the United Nations, he pleaded with the United Nations, and it's the United Nations documents. When I'm quoting, his name was Rabbi Yosef Tzvi Dushinsky of best memory, in July 16th, 1947, he said, "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine." This is here, he passed on, you can see the tens of thousands of Jews gathering to take another in Jerusalem. And this is in front of the White House when Bibi Netanyahu came to visit President Obama. We constantly are demonstrating, invariably around the world, the very religious community does not accept this Zionist state of Israel, its legitimacy, its existence, because it is not a Jewish state. They're using our name to silence the voice of the world that is watching the terrible injustice to the people of Palestine, the occupation of the land, and they're saying, what is going on here? So they're saying, don't mix it, this is a religious issue. If you're opposing it, you're opposing the Jews. God forbid, that's very vile, it's hurtful. We cannot be silent, because it's on the contrary, by supporting this occupation, that is anti-Semitism. Zionism is anti-Semitism. They're causing hate of Jews. They're killing the people of Palestine and Gaza daily. And they're putting Jews at danger also. And Jews are dying also for a cause that's unjust and a selfish, flawed movement.
Truth of justice and human rights.
Well, one of the issues of exile of the Jewish people for 2,000 years is God requires us to be loyal citizens, respectful citizens. Every country we reside to pray for the well-being of Moroccan Jew, always prays for the health and the well-being of the leadership, for the king and the family and the whole of Morocco. As an American United States citizen, we for all my life, all my years, we're demonstrating in front of the White House whenever a prime minister of Israel comes to visit the president. But it's always respectful and careful how we speak. And we plead with the presidents, regardless whether it was a Democratic president or Republican. Unfortunately, they've been helping, and this occupation and supporting the state of Israel, and they're being duped or misled or somehow by the representatives of the Zionist state that who are claiming that they're being attacked unjustly by the people of Palestine, and that they're simply trying to protect the Jews. We plead with the leadership to tell them that this is totally misreading of the history and of the fact on the ground. Jews there's a love, an integral peace between Jews and Muslims. Our history is the Muslims protected us all. We don't need human rights groups to protect us. We were always living in peace without any human rights groups to protect us all throughout the Muslim Arab. And we plead with the president to, on the contrary, to stand up and save the people of Palestine, amongst them the Jews. You know that the Jews, we never carry guns. That's our history. We don't carry guns or knives. Yet we are standing on the streets of Jerusalem and all through Palestine. We get brutally beaten children.
Why the military people hate you like that in the picture?
because we undermine their essence. We undermine their narrative that they claim that they're representing the Torah and that we're representing God, and it's a Jewish state. We say, excuse me, you've stolen our identity. It's not a Jewish state. It's a selfish, flawed nationalist movement that you're trying to create in the Holy Land, in this fabric of Muslims and Christians and Jews living together. It's unacceptable. It's against God. So they brutally attack, they beat, they arrest Jews, assassinate rabbis, and children, young children, old people, old rabbis. And this is the narrative. Daily for 70. This is for not for today. Today is already 77 years. By horse, they're trampling on the Jews. They're trampling on them. And again, they assassinate rabbis. We've had people in the history, not only from today, but it's a 76 years that we've seen this. It's 77 because Saturday became the Hebrew anniversary. Here you see they're spraying them with like a chemical. It's called stink water that destroys the clothes to discourage demonstrations, and they get arrested also. If I here you can see boys and girls, because it's mandatory service, military service, and they're what they call IDF, which is IOF. They arrest them because they refuse to serve in the army. And you see a girl crying there. We're standing and pleading with the world. We are Jews. We're living in a free Palestine for hundreds of years. Why? Where is the justice in giving control over the land to a group of people who have their goal, to create their own sovereignty on the heads and shoulders of a community that was living there for so many hundreds of years? When it's bogus, it's not Jewish, it's not God. They're using the Star of David, but it's really unacceptable. We cry with the people of Palestine. We are hurting with the people of Palestine. There's a great change, I can tell you. It's ironic because it's such a terrible, until we've had 77 years of killing, of oppressing the people of Palestine, the people in Gaza and so forth. They've been oppressed because they didn't want to accept the occupation. We're not condoning violence, but this is that people are standing up for their lives, and they've been. But now it culminated in the October 7th, where, as the Secretary General of the United Nations said, this didn't come out of a vacuum. What happened when they exploded out of there? Again, everybody's hurting with people dying, whether it's the Palestinians or the Jewish people. The world hurts. But to go and say that it was just a vicious attack of people. So they got up and since then there is a slaughter, unquestionably, of children, innocent people. There's no way that you can make a narrative and say that these are guilty of crimes, these children, and medical workers and reporters who are coming to report being assassinated one by one, targeted and assassinated. So the world, thank God, is simply can't be silent, and they are standing up. But unfortunately, it did not change the fact that there's many political leaders, unfortunately, are still under either tremendous amount of pressure, and they can't find their way out of this situation to speak up. But we cajole, we urge. I'm a child of Holocaust survivor. My father escaped when blessed memory, when the Nazis came into Hungary. He escaped, and his parents were killed in Auschwitz. The majority of both my mother of blessed memory and my father's family, they were all murdered by the Nazis. We went through over 5 years of Jews being exterminated, and the world was silent. And they tried to make remembrances of this. Why? Because they say it's not only important to remember the history, it's important that it should not be repeated. And unfortunately, we are witnessing that today the world is seeing an extermination of a people, and again, people are silent. And now we understand their pressure. I mean, we're not accusing people, because people are under tremendous pressure, and they know people that are going to commit political suicide if they speak up for the people of Palestine. But remember, ultimately, who put you in power? God gave you this elevated position. You were blessed by God with an intelligence and a blessed position. So you're going to have to answer to God. You're going to have to answer to your generations if you are silent, even though it's expensive. It's going to cost people positions, their political positions, but it's worth it to stand up. We cannot be silent. If you watch, you hear the people of crying, children of thirst, of pain from wounds, of suffering, of the people of Gaza, the people in Palestine, in Lebanon and Syria around they're suffering because of these attacks, vicious attacks of a wayward, a movement of Zionists, a movement that's decided they have to go and they don't know the way out. It's a satanic movement to take over a land. It's unacceptable. As Jews, we haven't accepted it. Because we are Jews, we oppose the occupation. We accuse Zionism and the state of Israel of being the textbook definition of anti-Semitism, and something that world says that is internationally criminal. We call it, it's against God. Right. So with God's help, thank God, I have the luxury and I'm blessed that I live in communities that are very religious and we're insulated. We have our anti-Zionist. Our schools are anti-Zionist. So Zionism and Zionist people won't find a place in this community because we totally, and the core values is against us. So against the Jewish people and our very religious community. I always like to say Zionism. They are mostly from non-religious, and from the religious you always find it's what they call modern religious. You always see the settlers and so forth. These are coming from what they call, if anything, modern religious. What does that mean? It's a euphemism for compromised religion. The modesty is questionable of the women, how they dress. The whole system of life is compromised. That's why they're able to embrace Zionism, which is following emotions, that we should have a land and so forth, but ignoring the teaching of the Torah. So invariably, as I say, the very religious are anti-Zionist. So our communities are insulated. So we have our schools, or the majority of our supermarkets and the schools and the communities, they're anti-Zionist. So we have no problem amongst them. But if I would go we go to other communities, for instance, when the Zionist leaders, Ben Gvir, Smotrich, the Prime Minister, what's his name, Netanyahu, all these guys come to visit in the United States, and we'll go demonstrate in those communities. I come out, my tires were slashed, the windows of my car were broken, we get death threats. So the Zionists. We have pictures. You can go to our site, NKUSA, that's where you'll see the site. I mean, just recently, the last few months now, by accident, I parked my car in a place where the Zionists saw where I parked. We came back, it was smashed, and my tires slashed, and we get death threats. This is from the Zionists, so we do not go in these communities of the Zionists. That if it wouldn't be for the fear of the Zionist attacks, you would have hundreds of thousands of Jews around the world who would be out there demonstrating, because it's so intimidating. The Zionist attacks, many people are silent that they would be out there demonstrating. Because I say, Judaism is distinctly opposed and the opposite, the diametric opposite of Zionism, and opposed to it. And the ones who are true to Judaism oppose us, and we are hurting, crying. We are humiliated, but we see what that is being done in our name to the people of Gaza. We have no question, as our great rabbis, the chief saints, Rabbi Yisroel Teitelbaum, who was the chief rabbi of Palestine in the 1950s, 1960s, he constantly reiterated that it is unacceptable, forbidden to make a statement. In the Torah it states clearly, it says, God says, why are you rebelling against me? It will not be successful. We are not questioning the fact that the state of Israel will end entirely, completely. It is a bogus, it's not a Jewish state, it is an attempt of creating a nationalism in the heart and soul of another people, of the Palestinian people, entirely against the edicts of God and the Torah. So this will end entirely. We only pray to God, and we urge everybody that we should pray to the Almighty, because although we take actions and everything, but ultimately everything is in the power of the great power, the Almighty, and He's all compassionate. He will bring an end to the occupation, and that my message is the people of Gaza, of Palestine. Keep up the hope, because ultimately the Almighty rules the world. He will bring an end. We pray, and we urge everybody to pray that He should make this end happen speedily and peacefully. So it will end. That's the opinion of all our communities of Judaism. It will end, there's no question. But till that day comes, we again urge everybody, in the name of the people who are suffering in Gaza, in the name of godliness, that we should not be silent, and especially the political leaders who have the power to stop this, that the dehumanizing of the people of Palestine, that's what the Zionists are doing. They dehumanize the people of Palestine in order to make it acceptable that they can bomb them like you spray a field with insecticide. That's what they're doing, and because they're putting in the minds of people that they dehumanize people, that this is an insult to the brains, the common sense that God gave you. How could you witness this and accept their narrative? That you must stand up and stop it. You must stand up to all your powers and stop it. So how it will stop? Ultimately, God will stop it. But we don't have the luxury until that day comes of being silent. So to both the non-Jews, we plead with them, don't be intimidated. It's not anti-Semitic. Look at the very religious communities. Hear the voice that we are saying it's acceptable and it's proper to stand up. And my Jewish brethren, we plead with them also. Don't be afraid to speak up. Speak up as best of your capability. Yes, we are attacked, but we must speak up. And God protect us. Well, you know, it is. There's a history that is there. It hasn't been eradicated, although Zionism tries to make a new narrative of the history that we had to hate, but between Jews and Muslims and England. But the history shows how we lived in every Arab and Muslim land. And Morocco, of course, is the beautiful example of this. But we have that we were living in Yemen, in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Lebanon, and in Al-Quds, obviously, in Jerusalem. So I many years have been pleading with that. It costs money because the regular newspapers or newscasts won't print this, but they should show and bring the anecdotes and stories of people, how we lived together, always in peace, and that the religion did not play a part in having being a separation between us. Well, in Morocco, obviously, this one city after the other. While I'm here, I'm catching the opportunity to visiting one city after the other. Where I was in Tangier, or you go to in Marrakesh, or you go to in Fez. Fez, as I mentioned, was the great Rabbi Yisroel Dovid, the Rif, who's.
I think you told me about it.
And Wazwan, people go on pilgrimages to Wazwan because Rabbi Amram ben Duan is buried over there, and he was a great rabbi from hundreds of years ago, now over 400 years ago. So you see, Jews lived here amongst distinctly religious Muslims, and they were not murdered. There was no human rights. There was no United Nations. So this is our history. So the leaders, if the leaders would and the people would put advertisements and show how that has nothing to do with a religious conflict, and it's just a relatively new movement. It's a little over 77 years. This movement. It's just an attempt, a flawed attempt at creating a new concept, a new a state for a few in the homes of other people. That's what I just like to I carry around with me. We went to visit in Lebanon, so I went to visit Saba Shatila and Baja Barajna. I got to some Baja Barajna. The people embraced me. We went to Gaza. They said every house that tells the anecdotes, the beautiful stories, how we lived together. They lived with the Jews. Each one tells a story how they helped the Jews and how the Jews helped them. And this is so beautiful. And we have to, and they all want this. The people in Gaza, well, they were crying. I went to visit after Cast Lead, I went to Zaytun with the Samuni family. Like 30 members were murdered. Today, it's commonplace to see such a thing. And I went a year later, in the middle of the heart of civility, and it's not some desert, and people they were still suffering from thirst and hunger, from brackish water, and it's a year after this tremendous tragedy that happened there. And they cried with me. Other people, we went to the orphanages, and still they embraced me. They said, "We're not against Jews." Everybody said that. This has nothing to do with a religious conflict. The world has to see this. One day this will end, and the world will turn around and say, "Why did we allow this injustice to happen, where of a people that had no reason that they shouldn't have been able to live together, and we were living together, and it was destroyed by a movement of a few people that wanted to create their own selfish sovereignty." It's unjust, it's unacceptable. With God's help, obviously our teachings, as history shows for hundreds, is not a problem that we coexist, because we did coexist. You look at the history to know the future, to see. So there's no question that we have been able to live together, and we will be able to live together. In fact, I've met with the leadership of every single faction, every part of whether it's from Sunni, Shiite, or Sufi, whatever you like, whatever. And they all profess and talk about and how their families, South Africa as an apartheid state, and they would speak to their ambassador, His Excellency, this and that, and they were given total legitimacy. And the ones who opposed them, for instance, Nelson Mandela was 27 years in prison as a terrorist, and so forth. People who spoke up against this were considered terrorists, and they went on their merry way for so many tens of years. Then eventually the people, the grassroots, the people on the street, just couldn't accept it. They put up more and more pressure. Obviously it's from God, but it was the people the people who brought this, God sent us messages to do this, and they put such pressure on the governments that they made them uncomfortable, that they had to stop the acceptance of apartheid. Today, there's no apartheid. If South Africa, forget about South Africa, anybody would introduce or try to create the country under apartheid, they would be laughed out of the United Nations. They would be considered most evil on the world, and nobody would accept such a thing. Yet this went on for tens of years amongst the most intelligent, the leaders of the world. How could that be? So you can end it, the occupation, that all the people, they'll peep the Arabs, they're going to kill the Jews. God, that's not true, because everybody wants to live in peace. The people who have committed crimes, obviously they'll have to answer to international courts. But these people who feel uncomfortable, let's say 10,000 people or whatever it is, who are living in occupied Palestine, who committed atrocities. So besides, of course, they have to go to answer to the courts. But just like in apartheid, the same thing, these people who are uncomfortable, so America and Europe, Canada and UK, who's giving billions of dollars to support the Zionists, that they should be able to bomb and make walls and things like that. Instead, take those billions of dollars and relocate those people who say they're uncomfortable, they feel they cannot be safe in a free Palestine. Relocate these 10,000 people, whatever, and the rest will definitely be able to live together in peace. So that is a solution, I think. But whether my solution you want to accept, that does not change the fact on the ground that there was no legitimacy, no legal or right, according to Judaism, to create the state in the first place. We're on the situation now has to be solved, but there's no, whether you accept my the way we accept, this will never change the distinct issue that the creation of the state is against Judaism and has no right to exist. A solution has to be searched, and I believe this, what we're talking is a very simple solution. But I'm saying this because I had a rabbi who passed on. His name was Rabbi Beck, Rabbi Moshe Dovid, of blessed memory, who was a Holocaust survivor, and his wife was from a sixth-generation Palestinian. He always used to say, I don't like to say solutions, because then if you won't accept my solutions, so then you may say, oh, so everything I said wasn't right either. No. The fact the occupation was illegal, was criminal, against God, against the Torah, and everything wrong. And so let's put that on the side, and we'll talk the solution as a distinctly separate issue. But the solution is very clear, really, also true. As I say, we cry, we plead, we cajole, and we go to our leaders of the United States that it's totally unacceptable. It's just not, it's against God to send one bullet, anything to support this horrendous genocide of the people of Gaza, and even to support it at all. The state of Israel. This is wrong. It's an unjustifiable occupation of a land that was free, of Palestine. It's unacceptable. There was a country where people were living, and for thousands of years, and Jews and Muslims and Christians were living together in a free Palestine, or whatever the way Palestinians wanted the country should be. But it's just unacceptable. What can I say? As a Jew, we are doing this all the time. The American public, it's hard to, I don't know how to quantify, I don't know how to judge that. Because the American public, there are so many people that are pleading, and they're speaking up and they're crying. I've gone to hundreds and hundreds of demonstrations, and the last 2 years, it's 19 months, 20 months now, that we've gone, our people have gone literally every single day. There's almost every single day, not being exaggerating, but almost every single day, there are demonstrations throughout the United States that we've been joining. And people are begging and saying it's our tax dollars that are paying for this, and we don't want this. So the masses are speaking that they don't want it. So I can't accuse the masses. They're trying to do their best, and they're getting arrested. Almost every demonstration, people get arrested for no reason. Almost, you can say. They went on the street when they were supposed to go on the sidewalk, and people, they look for excuses a lot of times that so what can I say more than that? We can only speak up as the best we can. But the political leadership, we plead with them that they have the power. They should do what's right. They will stand in front of God. They'll appreciate themselves. They'll be able to look in the mirror if they'll stand up now and help the people of Palestine. What are the limits? Again, it's the works of Satan. There is no question. I mean, I could tell you that for tens of years, we go to Washington, D.C., when the AIPAC, American-Israeli Political Alliance Committee, makes their conference. They make it mostly the times in the Washington Center. It's it's like 3 blocks long. And almost all the Democratic leadership, the senators and congressmen and presidents and vice presidents from both Democratic and Republican side, comes and gives a speech there for them and gives them support. So it's unbelievable the extent of their influence in the political world in America, and not only in America, but in many countries in Europe also. So it's very, very hard for politicians to almost every politician, before they take over the office, they make it almost a required trip to on the bankroll of the Zionists. They get wined and dined in Jerusalem and so forth by the Zionists, and they're giving these free trips and stuff. So they go there, and the Zionists, by the way, have something called birthright, where they pay millions and millions of dollars to take students to go go to show Israel. They don't show you what's happening in the refugee camps and so forth. So they have a tremendous amount of money that's satanic, where they use this to influence people and to intimidate the political leaders not to stand up or voice any sympathy for the suffering of the Palestinians. So it's really, but they're limited by one thing. There's a great Almighty, and He is the power of the world. I keep on repeating that, and there's no question in this. So it will end. But right now they have a tremendous amount of power, and it's really heroic when a politician stands up and speaks out. Yeah, well, here in Morocco, I mean, I have a beautiful Jewish community that I meet with them. They come to visit sometimes in New York, and I know of them from when they were living in Palestine. That they, because of their strong moral ethics, that they believe in God and the Torah, and they hurting and opposing the occupation, they decided to move out, and they moved here to Morocco, and it's a beautiful community, and they're living here. So I hear from them all the time, and they're living here in Morocco, and because they knew that Morocco, the king of Morocco and the country of Morocco, is so friendly to Jews, has this beautiful history, so they're living here. And they laud it all the time. They speak about it all the time, and they always say, "Why don't you come out, Rabbi Weiss? Come to visit." Oh, I would love to meet with him. I'd love to give out the blessings of our community, our concern for his health, that he should have a long, healthy life, and a speedy recovery, as I say, and he should see, we say in Jewish nachas, he should see a lot of joy from of many generations of his offsprings, with the family together. He should enjoy. So I would love to be able to convey that. I'm sure we would give a little token of a present for the king, and show our appreciation for his leadership here of Morocco. Yes, but I mean, it's, you hear in the world of the leadership in Morocco, that the citizens are happy, and that they're given a good life, thank God, and of course under the blessings of God. With that, I hear even that everything is growing beautifully this year, and that God should hope that it should expand with the prosperity and really, again, with tranquility. So God should continue, that he should be able to lead in peace and tranquility, and as again, we would love to express thankfulness for the way of the treatment of the Jewish people, and to offer our blessings. So maybe I would have that visit. I would love to. Again, like we say, it is so clear that it is unacceptable in any shape or form, this creation of the Zionist state of Israel, this occupation of Palestine. It's clearly a breach of the Torah. We're not, since the destruction of the temple, we're forbidden to have 1 centimeter of a Jewish sovereignty. And certainly when it's created against the will, and by occupying the indigenous populace, the people that are living there. So it's all manners, it is unacceptable to Judaism, and that is why till today you have the Eid HaCharedis. There's a rabbinate. Israel made a rabbinate as a window dressing for them, but there's another distinctly different rabbinate that's called the Eid HaCharedis, the God-fearing community. I quoted Abu Chatzira of blessed memory, Zeichat Tzadik Avracha, the name of righteous to be remembered. And we have the Eid HaCharedis, the God-fearing community, and they have a Bezdin called the court system, and the rabbis. They're there that are distinctly separated from the Zionist community. They don't, as I quoted his statement, that Abu Chatzir said that they should not go to vote in the Israeli elections. We have our rabbinate, we have our Insulated, we have our communities. They don't take money from the government. They, even though it's so expensive medical treatment and there's socialized medicine, but they refuse. So we have the chief rabbi of Palestine, Rabbi Tartubaum, created an organization called Hatzalah. Hatzalah is a funding to save, and that Hatzalah means to save, and we and all the communities around the world, we give special funding for the communities in occupied Palestine, in Al-Quds, in Jerusalem, that they should be able to be self-sufficient. They should that if somebody has a baby or something, they should be able to pay for the hospital, because after the lady has a baby, she wants it released from the hospital. They say, oh, you have to sign the paper that says that you recognize the state, that you're accepting, and they say no. So then they say, okay, then pay thousands and thousands of their money there. We don't even like to say the name of the money, in dollars it would come out. And where do they have that money? They have large families. We don't have family planning in Al-Quds. Thank God we're expanding and expanding. So we try to help them from our communities when they, for the schooling, we pay for their schooling because we refuse to take from their education department from Israel. So we are, around the world, we try to do this so that they should be able to exist. Yes, so we plead with the world to recognize that the distinct difference between Judaism and Zionism, and that it's not the Jewish religion and not the Jews who are true to the Jewish religion who are supporting, who have created this monster, the Zionist state of Israel, and we all, and not my religion or the people true to it around the world, we don't support it. We are hurting with the people of Palestine and crying with them, and we hope the message goes to the people of Gaza and Palestine that El Bima Palestine, we say, our hearts are with you, Palestine. Our hearts are with you. We are crying with you. We wake up day and night. We don't. It's so frustrating. So there's no words. We try to think, what can we do? What can we do? How can we? When is this nightmare going to end? But we have God, so we that gives us our sustenance now, that we know that God rules the world. So we pray to Him, and we know one day He will end this. And we also invite the people. We ask people from the communities, send our message. Send the message, people of Gaza. Call us to your universities. Call us to your schools, to your conferences. Let us to clarify to the world. They should understand this, and let's work together. Let's to be able to bring an end to this occupation. Yeah. Well, again, our messages, we've been giving them unrelentlessly. We've been giving to, our messages unambiguous, very clear. We've been speaking and sending messages to him all the time that, as I say, he's constantly said, he said that he has a mandate from God when he became president. And we're saying that this is very clear. There's no question in this issue that Palestinian people must be saved, and they're victims, not villains. They are the victims, and they have to be saved. And it's not against Judaism or the Jewish people. By saving them, you will bring peace to the world by stopping immediately the carnage, the genocide, and we're pleading with the other world leaders. I don't know the extent of the capability of helping the people, but what they can do, they should do. And I say God should give healthy, long years for the King of Morocco, that he should do what he can. I'm sure he's trying to do, but he should do what he can. And also that he should, my beautiful colleagues who moved here, he should see to help that they should settle beautifully in Morocco, that we should be able to show the world that the history lives on, and that we can live together in peace.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.